Hello, and welcome to our St. Paul Learn with the League Earth Day program today. Betty McCollum is in the house, Advocacy for the Mississippi River. I'm Amy Mino. I'm a former president of the League of Women Voters St. Paul, and I'm pleased to be the moderator for this program, along with another former president of the League, Heidi Klumpkin. And we're pleased that you're all able to join us today. For those of you who've been following our programs for a while, you should note our record of heavy hitters. Last month, we hosted the eminent Dr. Mike Osterholm, pandemic expert and internationally renowned epidemiologist. Today, Earth Day 2025, we're pleased to welcome U.S. Congresswoman Betty McCollum, who represents Minnesota's 4th District, which includes St. Paul and surrounding areas. Fun fact, Earth Day began in 1970 as a nationwide demonstration organized by Wisconsin Senator Gaylord Nelson to raise public awareness about environmental issues and inspire action. It evolved from a grassroots movement into a global event and celebrated by millions in nearly 200 countries today. The first Earth Day sparked political action, leading to the creation of the Environmental Protection Agency and the passage of environmental legislation. Before I hand it over to Congresswoman McCollum, please note that you can enter questions in the Q&A. We have a team of people consolidating your questions and funneling them to our moderator. We'll do our best to make sure your questions are asked, but they may not be exactly as you wrote them. Please remember that League is nonpartisan and issues-oriented, and please keep your questions civil and relevant. We have Congresswoman McCollum just for a short time this afternoon, so please make sure your questions get in there as soon as possible. In the interest of time, I'm going to drastically abbreviate Congresswoman McCollum's very full bio. Congresswoman McCollum represents the residents of St. Paul, as well as all of Ramsey County and most of Washington County. Throughout her career in public service, she's been a champion for education, the environment, healthcare access, human rights, and a strong national defense. As part of the 118th Congress, Congresswoman McCollum brings a Minnesota perspective to her work as a senior member of the House Appropriations Committee, where she serves as the top Democrat on the Defense Subcommittee. She has also served as the vice chair of the Interior Environment Appropriations Subcommittee, where she works to increase investments in the Environmental Protection Agency, the Interior Department, the Bureau of Indian Affairs, the U.S. Forest Service, the National Endowments for the Arts and the Humanities, and she continues to prioritize investments in Indian country and protect our clean air and water, our wilderness and public lands, and our nation's national treasures. Prior to Congress, she served in the Minnesota House of Representatives from 1993 to 2000. She served on the North St. Paul City Council and is a former high school social science teacher. She is a graduate of the College of St. Catherine's and the mother of 2 adult children. Bringing us to fun fact number 2. Congresswoman McCollum has sponsored a bicameral bill entitled the Mississippi River Restoration and Resilience Initiative, MRRRI, or MRRI for short, with Wisconsin Senator Tammy Baldwin. We reached out on this 55th anniversary of Earth Day, believing it fitting on the anniversary of Senator Gaylord's vision. This seems all the more relevant today with the American River's recent announcement of the Mississippi being considered the most endangered river in the country. That was just announced yesterday. Congresswoman McCollum, you have on this call and on YouTube forever a highly engaged community of leaguers and community members. What is going on? What should we be activating on? How can we be a force of consistency and change for good for the river? And with that, please join me in welcoming Congresswoman Betty McCollum.
Well, thank you. We've got a couple of slides that are going to be put up, and I'm just going to go ahead and talk over them while you're looking at them. Being a former teacher, that's a dangerous thing to do, to have somebody looking at a handout while you're talking, but it's the League of Women Voters, so I know you can handle it. So I just want to first and foremost thank the League for the work that you do and you continue to do. Some of you know Mindy Greiling. Mindy Greiling and I both, prior to being elected to public offices, were very active in the League, and I understand Mindy's back in there again, and I look forward to being active again in my retirement, which is not anytime soon, by the way. So MRRRI, and we get to talk about it on Earth Day. I was not surprised, but I was still greatly saddened when I heard that it was put on, the endangered rivers list, number one. And the reason why is the loss of wetlands and habitat due to increased flood risk. And it's a polluted dead zone in the Gulf of Mexico. I'm a social studies geography teacher. The Gulf of Mexico down in there is continuing to grow. And so we see some of the impacts up here at the headwaters, but we're not seeing the degradation that continues to happen to the river as it flows downstream. So why do we care about the Mississippi River? Well, it's essential to our economy, our environment, and to our own health, as well as the health of the habitat who lives in the area. Some facts about the Mississippi River: is the source of more than 20 million Americans for drinking water in 50 towns and cities around the river. It is the biodiverse habitat and a major flyaway, which is important to 780 species of fish and wildlife. That's 60% of the North American birds are dependent upon the habitat of the Mississippi River. Now, it's a working river too. I grew up in South St. Paul. So in the work that we're doing, we're not taking away any of the significance and the importance of barge traffic. And barge traffic really reduces our carbon footprint. So it's important to have. And when you talk to the people who work on the barges, they are very alarmed and concerned about what they're seeing happen to the river. So that's $400 billion of our economy is tied into the barge industry that we see on the Mississippi River. And that, as I said, reduces a lot of greenhouse gas by using the barges. And is also these people on the river who are navigating it all the time are our eyes quite often for what's happening on the river, as well as the people who live in the communities next to it. So we decided to reintroduce MRRRI on Earth Day, thank you, to once again emphasize the critical importance of the Mississippi River for environment and public health. And the new number for it is HR 2977. It has not, Tammy has not reintroduced it in the Senate yet, so I don't have a Senate file. And we're doing that to continue to do outreach to get a Republican to co-lead us on the bill. GLRI and other geographic programs have strong bipartisan support. And so this bill is based on the Great Lakes Initiative, Puget Sound, Long Island. I could mention all the other geographic parts of the interior bill, which funds programs like this. We first introduced the bill in 2011. With 6 years of work and broad coalition, thanks to the support of the League of Women Voters, the Association of Counties, Minnesota's Farmers Union, Governor Walz, Friends of the River, Mississippi River, wildlife, environmental groups, hunting and fishing and angling groups have been supporting of it. And we've even worked with some of the industries along the river to garner their support in the future as we move forward. As I said, it is a working river. My goal in this Congress is very simple, and you'll understand why, and I tell you in a few seconds. The goal is to build support for MRRRI because the fate of all the geographic programs and the Environmental Protection Agency are uncertain and at risk. Elon Musk and President Trump want to cut the EPA by 65%. And another thing that was just on NPR today, regional climate centers shut down abruptly this week, and here's why. And regional climate centers should go and look at this because this is a key to what we're doing with MRRRI. It's monitoring the health of our ecosystems. It's monitoring the health of the river. So we are very, very worried about what is going to happen. The Environmental Justice Office employees and grants programs got terminated notices again yesterday. Both for people who work in social justice now have also been added onto that just yesterday. So there's a lot going on, and MRRRI is part of what MRRRI can do is make a community healthier and thrive better. And so I want to work on programs that just do that for communities. Um, as I mentioned, it's modeled on the Great Lakes Restoration Initiative and the Everglades. And so how these work, it's a frame running and funding that coordinates with the federal government, has an action plan, and it collaborates with other states and tribal nations and local governments. And what we would do here is we would grant stream and stem, main stem river states, cities, townships, and tribal nations that are on the river a chance to apply for grants, much as these other programs do to improve the quality of water, the quality of habitat, and the quality of just life on this planet. To be really honest, the Mississippi River is an important river here in the United States. So the research center at the U.S. Geological Survey, it's a national, it's an upper above Ohio River confluence and a lower part of the river. They will be doing research and work with us to advance scientific understanding and support the work that MRRRI's doing. I want to be clear as I open this up to questions that MRRRI and the Great Lakes Initiative, they are non-regulatory. In other words, community groups and states and political entities come together to ask for help in delivering resources. So this is not about implying any new regulations, although we're probably going to have to work hard to keep the regulations we have for clean air and clean water right now with what's going on in the administration. But we've got a real opportunity to support stronger water quality and environmental standards through funding projects and innovative approaches at a community level. So these are going to be the main areas of focus in MRRRI that's in the bill. It is to reduce flooding and storm risk, to build community resilience for those communities who find themselves facing flooding and storm risk, to improve water quality. That's not only important for habitat, it's not only important for drinking water, but it's also important for river levels for the barges to be able to operate. There's certain times of the year now the barges can't even go through because the river has changed so much because of drought and other things happening. But we also want to work on protecting and restoring wildlife habitat. The most important thing that the Mississippi River really got a lot of focus on when we were in the middle of dreaming of this bill, as you know, is Asian carp. So we also want to work to prevent the spread of aquatic invasive species in here too, working with communities. So projects like wetland restoration or sustainable agriculture, they can accomplish many goals at one time, coming together using MRRRI as a framework to reduce an action plan. So we can reduce flooding reduction, we can filter water, we can improve habitat. The sky is the limit on what we can do here working with communities if we can get this bill passed and have some funding put towards it. We can make the Mississippi River the river that we all learned how to spell as a little kid and be proud of it and know that it will be there to serve future generations as it was for my generation and the generations that I follow.
Great. Thank you, Congresswoman McCollum. For those in the audience who'd like to ask questions, please, again, put those into the Q&A and they'll get answered from there. And as we're waiting for people to weigh in, can you tell us a little bit more about the long-term goals of this bill? Are there some things envisioned that MRRRI would take care of?
Well, so let's just talk about, for example, habitat and birding. So there's a lot of things we can do without any new regulations, working with groups like the Audubon, working with local state and county wildlife protection DNR groups, because as I said, 70% of North America's birds use that as a flyaway to improve habitat without changing any regulations. And so grants would be available for communities to say, hey, we want to, do what we can, work with Ducks Unlimited, perhaps some of the hunting and fishing groups to protect and improve the habitat along the way. We've done that on the Great Lakes and Lake Superior with cleaning up some areas and that up there and improved water quality, improved habitat at the same time. So it's really what a community wants to work on. Let's say there's another community that is coming together and they're concerned about ag runoff, and they've got some ideas or some plans on how to reduce the amount of nutrients that are going in. They can apply for a grant. They can work with extension services, maybe the University of Minnesota, maybe it's the University of Mississippi. That community comes together, comes up with an action plan, and we move it forward. And then there's the flooding and the resilience. I mean, when we all watch the hurricanes go through, we see this horrific flooding that goes through. Some things can be mitigated by just making changes or working to return land if a community would want to do so, so that it can absorb more of the water. So that's what's unique about it. It's a big river. You think of all, it's just you think of all the river towns from, where I grew up in South St. Paul to where it starts up in Lake Itasca down to where it meets the Iowa border. All the different aspects of that river, communities can work to come up with an action plan to improve whether it's habitat, water quality, flooding resilience, whatever. It allows community involvement, which I think is really important. Why I'm excited to do it on Earth Day, because the whole focus of Earth Day when it first started was getting communities involved to do something to make a difference in improving our environment. And MRRRI gives us the opportunity to do that on the Mississippi River.
Well, it definitely sounds like a bottoms up versus top down approach for the act. What kind of difficulties do you anticipate in getting the bill passed?
I'm going to be brutally honest. I'm putting the bill, and I'll be talking to the other people about it as a placeholder. I don't want the bill to go cold this year. I don't want to not have it introduced. And I'll be honest, we made it so hopefully we can get some Republicans on it by taking out some of the language that has been deemed unacceptable for grants. That doesn't mean a community can't go ahead and put a grant together and ask for something, but we're making sure that Republicans don't have any excuse not to stand up and support MRRRI and to get it passed and signed into law. Maybe not this Congress, but the next Congress. They would use excuses like, oh, it mentions the EPA and we don't want to fund the EPA, and they would come up with all kinds of excuses on it. So except for removing the EPA, which is the people who will interpret it, whether or not you've got a good action plan, we need to have a gatekeeper when we're spending federal money to make sure it's going to do what we want it to do to improve the quality of the river. They just have all kinds of excuses not to support any new programs. And as I said, Puget Sound, excuse me, I've got a rasp in my voice, Puget Sound, Great Lakes Initiative, they're all under attack right now. And so I don't think President Trump's going to be signing anything new into law, but we're not going to be silent. We're going to be out there pushing that the Mississippi River, an iconic world river, a river that means so much to the United States, needs our help and needs our support.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Some of that agricultural runoff has been noted as part of the problem with the Mississippi River. We're wondering if you could discuss that and talk about difficulties with the Farm Bill, and also what can we do here in St. Paul that will raise awareness or impact the agricultural practices of those surrounding states that are also on the same river.
Yeah. So excuse me, what a time to have my voice go weird. So bear with me. The chances of getting some action done with some of the farm groups, I think is possible. It totally is possible. I've had a lot of conversations with farmers. What farmers don't want is something mandated on them that they're not going to get any relief or any help for anything that they might need to do. That might cost them money. And you talk to farmers right now with what's going on the tariffs, they're, they're mortified about what's going to happen. With China going under, we could see, a big portion of some of our remaining family farms, our smaller farms, and a lot of stress with just what's happening with the tariffs. So having something like MRRRI out there where a farmers union or a farmers group or a community, farmers care about the environment too. They see what's happening and say, hey, we're going to look at your specific problem. This isn't a one size fits all. We're going to address maybe what this farmer wants to do, or a group of farmers along the river, if it's a group of them. And we're going to come up with an action plan, and we're going to monitor it. And we're going to see if it's successful. And if it's successful, then you can be the leaders in replicating this down the river. And it's about having conversations. As you said, Amy, it's bottom up, not top down. And a lot of what happens in Washington sometimes is one size fits all. This river goes the whole length of the United States. What one farming group is facing with maybe wanting to address with agriculture runoff is going to be different than another group of farmers in another state, depending upon the crop that they have, or if they're using tile, or if they have wetland restoration going on. So this is to, kind of come in and sit down and have a conversation. What can we do together? We want you to be part of it. And that makes a huge difference. I found working on environmental solutions. That's what we did to take it out west with the sage grouse. We worked with governors' organizations. We worked with environmental groups. And not everybody liked some of the discussion that we came up with. Everybody wanted it to be a little different. But at the end of the day, with what we were working to protect the sage grouse, everybody got on board with, because everybody was heard and everybody felt they were part of it. And the success or the failure was going to be monitored and reported back.
That's interesting. And this next question, we're getting quite a few questions in the Q&A. Does MRRRI help cities and towns on the river work together from Minnesota to Louisiana?
It has that potential. Mm-hmm. So when we've talked, as I mentioned, the League of the Association of Counties, all the counties around the river, they see it as great potential. Some counties are interested in tourism. Some are interested in water quality because they use it for drinking water. Some are interested in habitat. Some of them have community needs for resilience for what happens with, storms, floods, and hurricanes and that. And so it has the potential to make a difference. I think of the Mississippi River. I'm dating myself, but I had my imitation pearls when I was a little girl, were these plastic bubbles that popped into each other. I haven't seen them so much now because now they're choking hazards. So now they don't give them to little girls at an age. But what it is, it's a necklace. And right now this necklace is interconnected, but there are spots in between it where the bubbles fit together, where there could be a problem, where we could go in together as a community and solve it. So it has a huge potential. I think that's why the Association of Counties is interested in it. From a habitat standpoint, that's why we've had so much success in working with hunting and fishing organizations because of fish quality habitat in the water, as well as with birding associations. So it is a necklace. If you look at it as a necklace, it's a string of pearls. And in some places, the pearls don't fit together or they're broken. And we're trying to put it back together again.
Mm-hmm. That's a great analogy. I remember those necklaces. We've had a couple of questions about the Monticello nuclear facility and how that's impacting the health and safety of the river. Is that something you could speak to, the connection?
I can speak to it very broadly, and I'll speak to it first going back into the 90s when I served in the Minnesota State House. And I did not vote to store nuclear waste on the Mississippi River at Prairie Island because that's not a solution to what you do with a very harmful, potentially life-changing catastrophe that could happen at any one of these nuclear power plants. So nuclear power is part of the mix, but the way that these power plants and continue to be, they need to be tightly regulated. So my understanding, and I know the same information all of you are following in the newspaper, I believe the chemical is trillium that has been cited in the water. They are watching it very carefully, but they need to figure out why it's leaking in the first place. So that's about all I can say about that. I'm monitoring, I'm watching it, like all of us are here in Minnesota. But for right now, the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency is pretty much in the lead, I think, on that, working with Xcel Energy.
Mhm, mhm. We're coming up to 12:30. We still have some time here, but we'd like to ask you, what do you wish people knew about what's going on in DC right now? Some of the dismantling of the organizations that are going on, and how is the tone in DC? What should we as the public know, and what kind of directives are there out there for us in terms of responding?
So there's a couple ways I describe this. It is, I'll use their terminology, what the Trump administration uses. Oh, we're flooding the zone. By flooding the zone, everybody's in panic mode. In a flood, everybody panics. So when you panic, sometimes you're not as focused as you need to be. So lots of times people say, what are you doing in Washington to stop this? Well, we're working on supporting amicus briefs. We're having hearings. We're talking to the public. We are having town halls, but we're in the minority and we're very, very limited, especially by the rules that the Republican House passed on what we can bring to the floor and how we can do things. But the other way I describe this is death by 1,000 cuts. So if you read Project 2025, it's all about dismantling the federal government. And so what do I talk about? Where do I start? Do I start with getting rid of diversity and inclusion from everything from the military, which had to be integrated, to diversity and inclusion, to making sure that we reach out to communities that don't have as much affluence, who might want to work on a project like MRRRI or do something up in the Great Lakes. It's death by 1,000 cuts by not having anyone answer the phone at the IRS, closing places where the public can go to get support for navigating federal agencies, making the agencies close down, saying that we don't need to have a Department of Public Education anymore. So that causes a lot of angst. And what we need to do as citizens is to say we care about some of these things. Some of us care about all of them. Some of us only care about one or two of them. But we have to come together as a group of citizens, Republicans, Democrats, independents, blue dogs, no dogs, whatever. We have to come together and say, stop. If you really want to deal with waste, fraud, and abuse, we will hold our elected officials accountable to do that. But we are going to do it in a way that makes sense, in a way that does no harm. And so I think the one thing that I'm going to be focused on when I go back, I'm focused on a lot of things, but I'm going to be very focused on what happens with Medicaid, because they have a math problem. In order to do the tax bills that they want to pass with Republican votes, they need to cut spending to pay for the taxes. But the way that they're going about doing that is to cut $880 billion out of one committee. And that one committee, ENC, Energy and Commerce, the biggest thing that they have that's discretionary spending is 500 some billion dollars. So they would have to cut all of Medicaid in order to make that target happen. And so a lot of us have information on our websites. There are some Republicans that are very concerned about what could be happening to healthcare. I wish I could hear more speak about what could be happening to the environment as we're here together on Earth Day. But it's going to take all of us asking questions, moving forward, and just saying that, there's a responsible way to fix things or to change things if they need to be changed. But the way that this is going about, in my opinion, is illegal and very unconstitutional in some cases. But it's going to take all of us. I can't do it alone. Republicans in Congress can't do it alone who do want to be helpful. It's going to take all of us working together.
Yes, thank you. That is definitely the case. That's a call to action for all of us who are on the call here today. So we're coming up on 12:30, and I know you have to go, Congresswoman McCollum. We really appreciate you being here to talk to us about the environment and MRRRI, and to actually acknowledge and celebrate Earth Day today on this beautiful day in St. Paul. So thank you so
Absolutely.
much.
And I see the slide that's up. It's the canoe that's on the Mississippi River that the Park Service has for rent. And we're going to have to see whether or not the Park Service is allowed to do its interpretations on the Mississippi River. So let's hang together and fight for earth justice together. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yes, there's a lot going on, definitely, that needs to be followed in terms of our environmental concerns. And
Thank you again. Goodbye.
thank you.
Well, thank you.
Go ahead. Heidi's going to take over, and we have some more information to share with you. So welcome, Heidi Klumpkin.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much to Congresswoman McCollum and her team to make sure that she was able to be here today and share with us. And thank you to Amy for moderating this first part. As we all know, that sometimes the lunchtime can be full of meetings and running from one to the other. So we wanted to make sure that we had time with the Congresswoman at the start. And now we just wanted to share a couple some of the introductory things that we were going to have before. But as you learned today, we really wanted to talk about the Mississippi River today because of Earth Day. The Mississippi River Commission was created by an act of Congress in 1879. It works to improve the condition of the river, foster navigation, prompt commerce, and prevent destruction by flooding. Minnesota is in the upper Mississippi River segment, including parts of Iowa, Wisconsin, Illinois, and Missouri. And as the Congresswoman said, there's about 30 million people who use the river for drinking water, food, transportation, power production, recreation, and employment. We have a couple slides here that show some of the data that she was emphasizing. The river supports over 1 million jobs, more than 345 billion in revenue annually. And so as discussed, like there's many people who use this river in many different ways, and we want to make sure that that continues. It's also a muse for artists. So the Iron 4 of the River Basin map hangs in the hall of the Capital Region Watershed District office in St. Paul, which you can go and see. St. Paul gets most of its water from the river, and many surrounding municipalities get the residential water from the river. And this capital region, like all other watershed districts, gets their funding from tax dollars as well as federal and state grant funding. That's kind of wraps up our program for that. We wanted to take a few minutes to share some upcoming programs. We've got some really great ones planned for you. Our first in-person program in 5 years will be on May 18th from 1 to 3 p.m. at McAllister College at the Janet Wallace Fine Arts Center. It's 5 years later, the state of anti-racism and global protest against police violence with Dr. Walter Greason and League member Janice Curtin. We're very excited to have that information and be together in that space. We are also hosting our League of Women Voters St. Paul annual meeting on June 9th at the Humanities Center. And as another update, we are hoping to continue in-person programming in the fall. So keep an eye out for those events, which will be at the George Latimer Central Library on Sunday afternoons. The street parking is free on Sundays. The building is really beautiful. It'll be in the Otto Bremer Community Room. So keep an eye out for more information and topics about that. There's been a flurry of communication from the League of Women Voters US following what's been happening in DC, as we discussed with Congresswoman McCollum. One item we're closely following is the SAVE Act. So please sign up for this webinar on May 20th at 7 p.m. with the Minnesota Secretary of State, Steve Simon, and the National Political Advocacy Director for the ACLU, Deidre Schiefling. You can register at Clean Elections Minnesota website. So I do Google that. We'll post this later and make sure that you have access to that website so you can register for that webinar on May 20th. Remember that the League is fully committed to its nonpartisan nature while educating the public on candidates as well as promoting reliable and secure elections for our country. For more than 100 years, we've studied issues and taken positions, and we have taken action. So please check out our website to learn more about membership in the League of Women Voters and give us a try. We would like to thank our partners with this. We will obviously want to thank Congresswoman McCollum and her team for being with us today. We want to thank our partners in programming, Roseville and White Bear Lake Area Leagues, and the SCCTV and St. Paul Neighborhood Network for broadcasting these. Thank you so much for joining us today, and happy Earth Day.